G'day guys, Chronicles of Solid here, and I'm doing a review on this, the CRF1000L Africa Twin. Now, initial specs straight away: 1000 cc's, parallel twin, 90 horsepower, in the 80s for torque I believe. The big one is 21-inch front wheel, and nice little touches for off-road, like you can remove these little rubber pegs, and the gear shift lever just here, it will fold in. So they're nice little touches for the off-road. You get on different spec models you get different things. This is the ABS traction control. It doesn't have DCT, and it's in the tricolor paint scheme. I do prefer the red, but this looks pretty nice. So that's a basic walk around. This is Honda's addition to the big adventure bike market. Anyway, that's enough gas bagging and looking at it. Let's go get out on the road. Well, the turning circle certainly is good. I guess before we jump straight into the review, it's probably worth knowing my bike history and sort of background and all that crap. So my daily ride is an F700 GS. It's like an F800 but with cast wheels, and I also have a WR250R which I take for the proper off-road. I have ridden plenty more powerful bikes than this Africa Twin, and I've ridden heavier bikes than this Africa Twin. Okay, so let's get into the review of sorts. So this is the mid-range one. There's a model beneath it that comes with no ABS and no traction control. Then there's this model with ABS and traction control, LED indicators, bash plate, and these pathetic plastic hand guards that will probably survive one drop. Maybe they'll protect your levers. After that they'll be kaput. The first thing you'll notice tearing along on this is the exhaust note. For a stock muffler is very burbly. It's very nice for a stock muffler. And the other thing is the throttle response. It's not too snatchy, but you down gear and you can blip the throttle, which in my experience of test riding quite a few new bikes, it's not always possible to do that unless the bike's got an aftermarket pipe that makes it easier to blip. But it's just a nice little thing and helps with the smoothness of the ride, being able to blip down as you go. So that's a nice little touch. It moves along with a decent amount of urgency. It's certainly not inline 4 litre bike powerful at 90 horsepower, but it makes a nice big blob of torque down low and enough horsepower to more than get the job done. Seating positions quite good, nice and upright, nice and neutral. The bars are in the perfect position for me for on-road touring. If I was going to be doing some off-road, standing up a lot, I'd probably move the bars a little forward, and I'd also raise them up about an inch. So the bars are pretty good straight out of the box. The windscreen is pretty damn good. The only nitpick I have is that it kind of hits me like just at the visor. So I'm not sure if you can probably adjust that, but I'd probably move it up a bit or maybe right down so that it hits me in the chest. So the windscreen's doing a pretty good job. So is the whole fairing actually. You're quite protected from the wind. Seat height is good. I'm 180 centimeters tall, and I can flat foot this thing without a problem. The guy inside Honda said that the seat has 2 height settings, so for you shorter riders who might be a bit worried, it has a seat that can be dropped down. And make it a little easier for the height challenged. But this isn't a tall bike. For an adventure bike, this is not a very tall bike at all, actually. Mirrors are good. Realistically, if you're going off-road a lot, you'll probably change them. Little gripe that I do have with this is where the indicator switch is. It's very close to where the horn button is. The indicator switch is a little lower than a lot of bikes that I've ridden, so there's a little bit of a tendency to hit the horn, so I'm a little slow and cautious about hitting that indicator button just in case I make a fool of myself. This bike is a little controversial in that, oh, V-Strom. Can give me the nod, twat. In that I know a lot of people, when it was announced that Honda were making a off-road motorcycle, a lot of people got excited and hoped for something in the 650cc range, maybe an XR650L update or something more towards a rally bike Dakar style, or even something like the XR400, but instead they came out with the big adventure bike. Now, yes, I probably was one of the people that was a little disappointed in that, but any new bike in the dual sport and adventure market is a positive for me, especially when it's a Honda. Now, I'm not a Honda fanboy, but I recognize that they are the biggest Japanese motorcycle company, and when they decide to get into a market, they have big budget for marketing, and so it kind of spreads the word, and it gets people in that might not necessarily have thought about the dual sport and adventure world. So it only stands to increase and strengthen the category, and more bikes, more competition just makes the category better. So for that, I'm thankful that Honda came out with this. The suspension is pretty good. It's nice and taut, but it's not stiff at all. It soaks everything up, but it feels much stiffer than my F700 GS. Standing up is not too bad. Like I said, I'd raise the bars, get rid of those rubber inserts. It'd probably help you a bit as well. Plenty of information up on the dash. You've got your rev limiter, speed, fuel, gear indicator, air temperature, ambient air temperature, that is, not bike, but you do have bike temp. You have your average fuel usage and everything else, pretty much to pilot this thing into space. They've thought of everything. It is nice to be on an adventure bike and to come to a stop and not have that little worry about, am I going to get my foot down? There's no problems with this, so if you're a little shorter, like I said, you can relax on this bike. It's not too intimidating. Having 90 horsepower, some guys might see that as a bit of a deficit. In my opinion, in this engine and in this bike, you don't need more than 90. This is more than enough to hustle along. In fact, if I had this bike, I can see my license not lasting too long. It's that much fun. Because horsepower isn't everything. Sometimes torque is just as good. And this will just pull from any gear at any RPM. It's nice. And that's another thing to bring up. It's very happy to plod along in very low RPMs. Like, see if I can show you here. I'm in third gear and I'm just barely got anything, no hand on the clutch, and it'll just chug along without, doesn't even feel like it's going to stall. It feels like a very nice, well balanced bike. Have no problems to up with luggage. And those who are worried about it not having as much power as either the 1200 GS or the 1190 or any of the other big bikes, whether 90 horsepower is enough. Of course it is. I do all my touring two up and loaded to the gills on the F700, and it's down by you know, 20 horsepower and a good amount of torque, and even that thing's fine. But then again, I am a bloke who will happily load up my little 250 and go thousands of kilometers with that loaded up. So it all depends on your point of view and your preferences. Sounds fantastic. As you can see, it moves easily at 100 in top gear. Wind protection is very nice. There's a quick view of the city for you. If I was looking at 200 kilo plus adventure bikes and I hadn't had one yet, this is what I would get. It's typical Honda, because everything's where you want it to be. It's easy to understand, it's easy to ride, don't have to think about it. The engine's perky enough to have fun, but not so powerful that you soil yourself every time you twist the throttle. It's that nice balance of fun but manageable power, and it's just a nice place to be. It's not too ugly. The tank on it, I believe, is 19 litres. If it's not, I'll put it somewhere up in the video here. And I've read that that's good for about 350 kilometers, so that's on par with the F800. And in the adventure world, that's adequate. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's somewhere in the middle. I'll pull over again just so you can get a final look at it before I head back to the dealership. No stopping. Oh well, won't matter too much. So there you go, there's another look at it. It's a very nice bike to ride actually. That's something different that you don't always see, is it's got twin radiators. I'm not sure of the reason, probably space, but that's something a little unusual. The seat isn't the best, it's definitely not the worst seat in the world, but it is quite stiff. Let's see how she goes trying to squeeze down here, eh? Get this big fat pig of a thing down the line. Something tells me I won't make that gap. But back to the seat, it's not too bad. I'd probably want to change it out if you're looking at big miles, which most of you probably will be on a bike like this. An air hawk might do it though, whatever floats your boat. Handling is quite nice. For a bike of this size, 240 kilos, it's quite flickable and it carries its weight quite nicely once you're moving, pointing. But as a big adventure bike, it is a very good big adventure bike. The brakes are fairly good. They're not mind-blowingly good, but they're perfectly adequate. They feel about the same as the F700, maybe a little bit more bite, yeah, maybe a tiny bit better. But there's not much in it. So if you are looking for your first big adventure bike, definitely give this a look, as it's definitely worth your time. If you're looking to upgrade from an F800 GS or a XT660Z or any other middleweight V-Strom, this could definitely offer quite a lot that you don't already have. The F800 GS, the only reason I could see you upgrading for this is if you wanted a little more power, and you might have to sacrifice a bit of that nimbleness that the weight difference kind of gives you off-road, but on-road this is a fantastic bike, and for what it is, a big fat adventure bike, it'd be very capable off-road. Just to summarize, this is the CRF1000L Africa Twin out from Honda, one of many in a long line of Africa Twins that Honda's been making over the years, and I think it's worthy of the name. It's a very nice big adventure bike. It's not the light, nimble, rally-like bike that some of you were hoping, but it's a very capable big adventure bike. Anyway guys, that's about it. I'll catch you later. Thanks for tuning in.